Hey everyone, today I'm creating these cards using leftover card elements and scraps. You can see here that I have loads and loads of little Ziploc bags full of elements, and whenever I finish a project and have leftovers, I put them in a little Ziploc, throw them into one of those cube boxes that you get from IKEA in my storage shelf, and every now and then I pull them out and I try and use some up. Now, I honestly believe it would take me 10 years to use what I have. So I was a little disappointed after working through a few projects at just how few of these items that I finished. But I do have a plan to go through my stash and create up just some card kits that we can use for a local school holiday program. And then hopefully that will allow me to use up more. But for the moment, I'm going through and picking a few elements and trying to decide if I have enough that would create a really simple card design that is not in my traditional style of using up a pattern paper pad. So there is no special cutting down of new paper for today. Everything has come out of my stash. So I'm sorting through here and I'm counting how many I have of these gorgeous little squares, and then I'm finding the elements that I need to make the card. Now, if I have more of the squares or more of the circles, that's how I decide how many elements I'm going to put together. Hopefully that makes sense. If I then decide to add something else to the design and I don't have enough of it, then I take out a few of the elements so that they're all very, very similar, and I can throw them into a Ziploc, and then when I sit down and make the cards themselves, I have everything that I need ready to go, and all of my leftovers stay in my leftovers stash. Here I am with the navy blue, and what I've figured out with these little navy blue strips is that if I don't have enough to make the number of cards that I have listed here, or the number of elements, then if I have maybe half of what I need, then I consider chopping something in half so I do have enough. And in a few videos time, you'll see that I do that with things like circles and rectangles and other elements, just so that I've got exactly what's needed to finish off some of these piles of elements. There is a lot of counting involved, and I probably should have sat there with a notepad and written down how many I had of each thing, because you will see here that I am recounting over and over again, and it is just part of my process when I'm working through and designing this. This little Ziploc bag has a whole ton of 1/4-inch strips. It seems that when I cut things down from 5.5 to 5.25 or 4.25 down to 4 to create a white border around the edge of a card design, that I always seem to end up with these little strips that are the perfect size to decorate a card. So I have kept all of my interesting ones, so the ones that are gold, the ones that have maybe some embossing on them. If I kept all of them, I would just have a never-ending stash, but these ones are all a little bit different. Okay, so here I am. I have waited till maybe the next day perhaps, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out, with all of these elements, what did I create as my basic layout, and how am I going to use these little elements to decorate the cards. Because I do things in bulk, I am laying out 3 of them, and then that allows me to kind of tweak the design a little bit, try out a few different things. And laying these down is just the best way for me to figure it out. And then I can go into my mass production approach of gluing everything together and creating the cards themselves. Now, at the bottom, you'll see I mentioned earlier that sometimes I have a rectangle and I cut it down if I need more volume. And that's exactly what I've done there with the navy blue. You can't see it, but it's actually been cut out with a stitched rectangle die. And so when I've chopped it, I've actually put the line that does not have the stitching up against that sort of pink paper. And what that means is you can't tell that I've cut something in an awkward way or it was originally a rectangle, which means it works out absolutely perfectly. Now I have these tiny little strips of the blue, which is again 1/4 inch, and then I've got about 1/2 inch for the gold strips. And so I thought it'd be really nice to just layer them on top. And again, I don't have the full amount of those. I don't know, I think I made 14 or 16 cards using this design, but it meant that when I glued those on top and chopped them in half, I had the perfect amount for my card design. The next step is to create the sentiment, and I've decided that I'm going to add that to the circle. I did freehand stamp this, which caused a few troubles along the way. I'm using this cute little happy birthday stamp from my all-time favourite Lawn Fawn set. You can see it just off the side of the screen. I will put a link below to everything that I've used today that is still available, and that will definitely include things like the Versafine ink and the stamp set that I'm using. Two of them I actually stamped messy or blurry or incomplete or something that was not workable. In fact, it looks like I did that with three of them. So I am spinning the circle around a little bit and then I'm stamping again freehand. And I decided to use these ones first when I was creating the cards because I really wanted to show you that if you have a design element that can go straight over the top of a mistake, then you don't necessarily need a new circle die cut. With this one, I am offsetting the square to the left, adding my little element to the bottom. I've put a little bit of paper below or some scraps just so that that gold and blue is nice and flush with the card front. The next step is to add the circle, and you can see with the little girl stamp there that I've coloured with my copics that she is going to go straight over the top of my mistake stamp that I did a little earlier on the circles that you have below on the screen. So I really did not have to redo the die cuts, and it's going to work out absolutely perfectly. So now that I'm finalising these three cards that are, I guess, the examples, I definitely make more of these, but I've got the base layout sorted. The next thing I'm going to do is move on to my copic colouring. Now, I have loads of copics, so please, I don't know, I collect colours of things, and I've collected these over time. I probably have more than I need, and I do have my hex chart from Sandy Olnock on the top right, which helps me decide what to blend. But I have decided to just run through and do super quick copic colouring. I'm definitely not very good at this. I just do some flicking from the left and right in a darker colour, and then I just blend in the middle with a lighter colour of a similar tone. And there is no more logic than that. In fact, I think the only thing that I've done on a few cards is put some little creases of darker skin tones around knees and elbows, because that does help highlight the definition of how you would normally expect the skin to look on a human. So here I am working through in what I would consider the hardest colours to blend, which are reds and pinks. And I am just colouring in her little dress and doing the shoes and the main part of the dress and the collar in the same tone. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to colour the top part of the dress in a lighter pink. You can do whatever you like when you are copic colouring. That is one of my favourite things about it. And with some of these cards where I'm truly just making some decisions on leftover elements, it means that if I do the copic colouring last, I can use my copics to match whatever the pattern papers are. If I coloured these in first and then I was trying to find pattern papers to match them, I would have a much harder time. So that would be my number one piece of advice, is to create your cards and then use whatever colouring medium you want to use, whether it's coloured pencils or copics or some other type of marker or paint, even watercolour, I guess. I'm definitely not very good at watercolour, but I guess you don't have to be good at something to enjoy doing it, is my logic. So I am just giving it a go here. I did decide right then that I was going to try and do a chocolate cupcake, but it's very, very dark. So I think on future ones, I actually choose a lighter coloured cupcake so that the frosting stands out a little bit more from the stamped image itself. So you see here, I'm just doing these little lines for the knees. But other than that, I am literally just using two colours, one down the edge, one to colour the rest of the skin. I am using, I don't know what colours of Copic. I'll see if I can add them onto the screen so that you can see them. In fact, let me know below if knowing the colours of Copic is important to you. I by no means am trying to teach anyone how to do Copic colouring because I am definitely not the greatest. But here in Australia, we are a very, very diverse country. And when I donate cards, I thought it might be nice if I donated some that had some different nationalities represented. So this is what I'm attempting to do here. Now, you will notice that when I'm doing blending on darker colours, and particularly here with some of the skin tones, in the photos they look quite blotchy, but in real life they don't. I think it's my overhead lights when I'm recording. and when I'm doing my photographs, but there is a strong possibility that I should just do a better job of blending the colours together so that they don't look as blotchy as they do in the photographs. But these were so fun to colour. So the Pure Innocence collection from My Favourite Things is absolutely the perfect size element. Well, I have found for me that it is the perfect size element to add some interest to a card. And I feel like if I'm colouring in one item and I do one item per card, that I'm not in a situation where I'm colouring for the entire day and ending up with one card at the end. So you'll see here, I'm just adding some glue and then adding the little girl as a character. And then I'm going to add this panel to the front of an A2 card. So the panel itself, you can see here, this one is attached to a card already. You can see that I've put it a little bit higher with some paper behind it. And it's basically, this panel here is 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And it's just on a standard A2 white card base. So 5.5 by 4 1/4. So I've done some blue, I've done some pink. Anything that was going to match in with these cards was on the table. And I think in the end, because it was a little bit of a struggle to blend with my pinks and reds, I went a lot more with the blue. And I think there was maybe a gap in my markers. I think after this, I did purchase a few extras just in that colour family. You can see here that even these girls with the orange shirt and the denim skirt, they still match in and are pretty with the pink and reds and then the navy and the gold. So you do have a bit of latitude about the colour scheme that you're wanting to introduce. Because I had so many of these card layouts, I decided that I would do some of this additional style of little character. And this is a little girl holding onto a pineapple. Now, I do not normally use punny style sentiments, and a lot of these little characters do come with those, but the logic of her standing there holding a pineapple, I'm going to ignore that and just say it's a cute little character with a pineapple. So what I'm trying to show you here is just the way that I do mass production. So I've grabbed my copic, I've got 5 of these, and I'm just running through and I'm really quickly just adding down the pale yellow as a bit of a base layer. And then I'm just running in and just flicking all over this pineapple, mainly around the edge, a little bit through the middle with the darker orange, just to try and show that texture of a pineapple, which generally has the little ridges on it with the darker and lighter yellows. I then move on to the greens and I do the same thing with the top of the pineapple, and I'm just flicking down the left with the darker colour just to add a little bit of interest. Again, I really do this so fast. If you were an expert at copic colouring, you would probably do this quite differently than how I do. I'm just testing my colours here to make sure that they're going to work how I want to, and then I move on and do the rest of them all the same way. There are people who are amazing at this. They do basically no line colouring and, you know, stamp the character in a really pale colour and then just use it as a rough outline and then just use their copics to basically draw the character using that tiny... I can't do it. I'm hopeless. So for me, this is really all about colouring in super fast and enjoying the colouring process itself. I'm about to move on and do the hair and the skin tones again. One thing I did want to mention is about how I do the hair. So I actually colour the part down the middle of the hairstyle with the same colour that I use for the skin tone. And then I do the hair generally in a darker colour. I am not skilled enough to really do much variation with their hairstyles. I really struggle to do blonde hair, for example, and so I need to do a bit of research and do some practicing with that. So I tend to go with either dark brown hair or medium brown hair. I haven't done red hair or anything else, or even anything quirky like blue or green or something fun that you could do depending on your card design. For me, I just make sure along that part, and then when I do the hair itself, I make sure that I don't cover that hair part, so it just separates the hair from the head, if that kind of makes sense. Okay, if you've enjoyed the video, it'd be great if you could leave a like, and I am putting a link here to some more videos that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.